You think a modern pistol destroys a 1710 flintlock in every single category. You'd be wrong about at least 3 of them. A .45 ACP round exits the barrel at 830 feet per second. It hits harder than anything Blackbeard ever fired from his personal pistols. But Blackbeard's Blunderbuss, loaded with iron scrap, bent nails, and broken glass, created a kill zone at close range that no modern handgun can replicate with a single shot. One trigger pull, a wall of shrapnel. An entire boarding party stopped cold. The swivel cannon pirates bolted to their ship rails delivered more raw stopping power to a crowded deck than anything short of a modern grenade launcher. And there is one specific category, one that almost nobody thinks about, where a weapon from 1710 does not just compete with modern firearms, it wins outright. This video puts real pirate weapons against their modern equivalents, head-to-head, category by category. Reload speed, accuracy, stopping power, psychological impact in a fight. We are using actual ballistic data from both eras. The results are not what anyone expects. If you are into real weapons history and the kind of facts that nobody puts in textbooks, hit subscribe. This channel goes deep and it goes accurate. First, let's kill the myth. Golden Age pirates, active roughly 1690 to 1730, were not running around with one flintlock pistol and a cutlass. That was a movie decision made to keep budgets low. Real pirates carried multiple weapons simultaneously because every single one had a catastrophic limitation. It took 30 to 60 seconds to reload. So what did a well-equipped pirate actually bring onto a deck? The flintlock pistol was their primary sidearm, most commonly .50 to .69 caliber smoothbore, firing a single round lead ball. Effective range was roughly 15 to 25 yards. A skilled user could fire once, then flip it, and use the brass-loaded butt as a club. Boarding actions happened at arm's length. The pistol as club was not desperation. It was the plan from the start. The Blunderbuss was their close-quarters weapon of mass confusion. Short bell-mouthed barrel loaded with lead shot, iron nails, broken glass, chain links, whatever would fit. At 10 to 15 feet, it did not need to be aimed. It needed to be pointed. Records from the period describe single blunderbuss discharges wounding or killing multiple men simultaneously. The musket gave them range. Brown Bess pattern muskets, .75 caliber, could reach 50 to 75 yards with reasonable accuracy. Snipers, called top men, positioned in the rigging, fired down onto enemy decks before boarding. Crouched in the crow's nest, largely immune to pistol return fire from below. The swivel gun was their deck artillery, a small cannon, typically 1 to 2 pounds of shot, mounted on a pivot at the ship's rail. Could be aimed and fired by one man. Loaded with grape shot or canister, it turned a crowded deck into a butcher's yard. Pirates like Bartholomew Roberts used these extensively in the Caribbean. And then the blades. The cutlass, short, curved, single edge, was engineered for the geometry of a ship. No long thrusting swords in tight corridors. The cutlass was for hacking. The boarding axe doubled as a tool for breaking down hatches and a weapon for the fight that followed. Now for the modern side. The direct equivalent of the flintlock pistol is the semi-automatic handgun, the Glock 17 in 9mm, or for closer caliber comparison, the .45 ACP in a 1911 pattern pistol. The Blunderbuss maps to the 12-gauge pump-action shotgun, loaded with 00 buckshot, 9 pellets of .33 caliber lead, all leaving the barrel simultaneously. The musket's modern equivalent is the bolt-action rifle, the Remington 700 in .308 Winchester. and the swivel gun is the hardest match. At its power level, the closest civilian legal equivalent is a 12-gauge slug, and we'll come back to exactly where that comparison breaks down. Category 1. Reload speed. This is the most lopsided comparison, and it is not even close. A Golden Age pirate's flintlock pistol required between 30 and 60 seconds to reload, and that was for a trained, experienced user who had done it 10,000 times before. The sequence? Measure powder, pour it into the barrel, ram a patch and ball down with the ramrod, pour a smaller priming charge into the frizzen pan, close the pan, cock the hammer, aim, fire. One shot. Then start over. In active combat, under stress, with blood on your hands and the ship rolling underfoot, real-world reload times were significantly longer. Some historians estimate 2 minutes for a panicked or wounded user. The solution pirates used was to carry multiple loaded weapons simultaneously. Edward Teach, Blackbeard, famously went into battle with 6 pistols on a sling across his chest. Not because he was showing off, because he needed 6 shots before he could reload anything. A modern Glock 17 holds 17 rounds in the magazine, plus 1 in the chamber. A tactical reload, swapping a partial magazine for a fresh one, takes a trained user under 2 seconds. An emergency reload from slide lock takes 3 to 5 seconds. In the time it takes a pirate to fire once and begin reloading, a modern shooter has fired 18 rounds, dropped the magazine, slapped in a fresh 17, and is ready to continue. Modern wins this category by an order of magnitude. Category 2. Accuracy. This is where the comparison gets more complicated and more interesting. The flintlock pistol was a smoothbore weapon, no rifling. The lead ball rolled around loosely in the barrel as it traveled down. At 10 yards, a skilled shooter was accurate. At 25 yards, they were hoping. At 50 yards, they were essentially making a loud noise in the direction of the enemy. The Brown Bess musket was also smoothbore. The British military's effective volley fire doctrine did not even aim at individual targets. They aimed at formations, mass fire, volume over precision. The modern 9mm pistol, rifled barrel, consistent powder charges, uniform jacketed ammunition, is capable of 2 to 3 inch groupings at 25 yards in trained hands. A .308 bolt-action rifle can achieve sub-MOA accuracy, groupings smaller than 1 inch at 100 yards. Modern firearms win accuracy at every range beyond about 10 yards. It is not even a debate, except for one specific use case. The blunderbuss was not designed to be accurate. It was designed to make accuracy irrelevant. In a corridor below decks, in a doorway, at the mouth of a hatch, the blunderbuss did not need to hit a target. It needed to fill the space. At 10 feet with a full load of scrap metal, the spread covered a 15-foot circle. Modern shotguns with 00 buckshot spread about 1 inch per yard, roughly 10 inches at 10 yards. The blunderbuss was wider, messier, and packed with more types of wound-inducing material per shot than a modern buckshot load. For extreme close quarters in a confined space, the blunderbuss created a wound profile that a modern shotgun cannot match with a single shell. Modern wins accuracy in almost every scenario. The blunderbuss wins in extreme close quarters confined spaces. First point to the pirates. Category 3. Stopping power, defined as the ability to immediately incapacitate a target, not just kill them eventually. A .45 ACP at 830 feet per second generates roughly 350 to 370 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. A 9mm plus P generates 400 to 450 foot-pounds. These are serious numbers. A .50 caliber flintlock ball, common in the period, generates approximately 200 to 280 foot-pounds at the muzzle, significantly less than modern pistol rounds, slower, less aerodynamically stable. Modern wins handgun versus handgun on stopping power. Now load a swivel gun. A 1-pound iron ball carries roughly 2,000 to 3,000 foot-pounds of energy depending on the powder charge and barrel length. Loaded with canister shot, a tin can packed with dozens of smaller iron balls, it discharged like a shotgun the size of a small cannon. At 50 yards against a group of men on a deck, there was nothing in a civilian's hands today that matches this. A single discharge could kill or maim 5 to 10 men simultaneously. A 12-gauge slug delivers around 2,600 foot-pounds. One projectile, one target. The swivel gun delivered similar raw energy distributed across an entire section of deck. The weapon it actually loses to is the 40mm grenade launcher, a military weapon not commercially available to civilians. Against anything a person can legally own today, the swivel gun wins. Second point to the pirates. Category 4. Psychological impact in combat. The category almost nobody analyzes, and the one where the historical record is most surprising. Pirate captains understood that the best battle was one where the enemy never fought back. They engineered their entire presentation around psychological warfare. Blackbeard lit slow-burning fuses tucked under his hat before boarding actions, smoke wreathing his face in sulfur. He collected wounds demonstrably and kept fighting. When he finally died in November 1718, the naval report described 5 bullet wounds and 20 sword cuts. The spectacle of a man who would not stop was itself a weapon. Pirates flew specific flags designed to trigger a fear response. The Jolly Roger was not decoration. It was a negotiating tool and a psychological attack delivered before a single shot was fired. Many merchant captains surrendered immediately upon seeing it, understanding that resistance would be punished and surrender might not be. The sound of a blunderbuss in a confined space below decks, the roar, the smoke, the shrapnel ricocheting off iron fittings was psychologically devastating in ways that are hard to quantify. Witnesses described total paralysis in defenders who had not even been hit. Modern firearms fire faster, more accurately, and more reliably. But a Glock discharging in a room sounds like a gun discharging in a room. A blunderbuss loaded with scrap metal in a ship's corridor sounds and feels like a small explosion. This category is a draw, with a historical edge to pirate systems for the specific context of boarding actions. And now the category we promised at the top, the one where 1710 beats 2024 outright: reliability under environmental conditions. Specifically, salt water, humidity, spray, and the working conditions of a wooden ship under sail. Modern semi-automatic firearms are engineering masterpieces. They also have tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. Sand, salt spray, water intrusion into the action, these cause malfunctions. The M16's notorious failures in early Vietnam came from a combination of tight tolerances and environmental contamination. The 1911 pistol was a massive step toward corrosion resistance, but it still requires maintenance in maritime environments. A flintlock pistol is a lever and a spring and a piece of flint. The primary failure mode, a misfire due to wet powder in the pan, was known and managed. Pirates kept their powder dry in sealed cartridges and covered their pan covers with wax or leather on wet days. The mechanism itself had almost no moving parts that could corrode into dysfunction. British naval records from the period show functional muskets being recovered from shipwrecks and returned to service after drying. Modern firearms recovered from the ocean floor require complete disassembly and rebuild. In the specific environment where pirate weapons were actually used, salt air, spray, rough handling, storage in humid below-decks conditions, the flintlock mechanism was more reliable than an unprotected modern semi-automatic pistol. This is documented in naval maintenance records. Ships' armories in the 1700s had protocols for maintaining flintlocks on long voyages. Modern navies have dedicated corrosion control programs for their small arms that simply did not exist in this form before. In a maritime combat environment, with no maintenance available for weeks, a flintlock is more likely to fire than a modern semi-automatic pistol left unsupported in salt spray. That is the outright win. The environment that produced pirate weapons is the environment where pirate weapons were optimized. Modern firearms were not. Here is how the comparison actually breaks down. Reload speed. Modern wins, not close. Accuracy. Modern wins at range. Blunderbuss wins in extreme close quarters confined spaces. Stopping power. Modern wins, handgun versus handgun. Swivel gun exceeds anything a civilian can legally own today. Psychological impact. Draw. With a historical edge to pirate systems in boarding actions. Environmental reliability. Pirate flintlock wins outright in sustained maritime combat without maintenance. The overall modern advantage is massive and real. 300 years of metallurgy, chemistry, and mechanical engineering produced weapons that are faster, more accurate, and more lethal at range by every objective measure. But pirate weapons were built for a specific world, cramped, wet, chaotic, close, and in that world, they were not merely adequate. They were optimal. The blunderbuss in a ship's corridor, the swivel gun on a crowded deck, the flintlock mechanism that kept working 3 weeks into a voyage without a gunsmith. That is what 300 years of development actually changed. And now you know exactly what it did not. If any of this surprised you, especially the environmental reliability result, drop it in the comments. That one gets the most pushback from people who haven't looked at the actual maintenance records from the period. Next video, we're going through the actual weapons inventory recovered from Blackbeard's flagship Queen Anne's Revenge off the coast of North Carolina. What they pulled off that ship is not what anyone expected. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Like this one if you learned something. See you there.